Hello everyone. I'm so tired being back at work, and it's so hard. I'm actually feeling myself speaking slower. I'm back doing a 40-hour a week manager's job, and I'm pretty tired. 5 days a week, and I'm struggling to keep up with these videos, but I'm still here because that's the kind of guy I am. You subscribe to me because I fulfill your audio geekness. I'm Paul Third and I do plug-in shootouts, and guess what? Today I'm going to fulfill your audio geekness even more, right? Manley VARI-MU versus Acustica Audio Magenta versus the Pulsar Mu. Let's do it. So yes, I am pretty tired. I've still got my work jumper on, man. I'm just back from work. I am shattered, right? But yes, I'm still trying my best to get all this stuff done. So the shootout is done, and I've just got to do this video, okay? I'm still here to fulfill your audio geekness needs, okay? So yes, Manley VARI-MU, you're talking $3.5 to $4 You can pick it up for very, very popular VARI-MU compressor. I'm not going to tell you what VARI-MU compressors are, right? You should know it probably if you're watching this video. If you don't, then it's got tubes in it. You can change the release. I think the attack is fixed, and it's the ratio that's variable due to the tubes, how it compresses. I don't know. I don't care, right? Whatever. It's a compressor and it compresses and it sounds colourful, right? So let's get into it, okay? Okay, so we've got the Manley VARI-MU, and then we have the Acustica Audio Magenta, which is sampling quite a lot of different Manley gear. But we're looking at the Manley VARI-MU, okay? So what you've got to remember is that Acustica Audio sample the actual hardware, okay? So everything you're hearing is an impulse response. So what you've got to remember is in the pre, it's a snapshot, okay? All the harmonic response and all the non-linear responses, every move you make is an impulse response of the actual sampled hardware. That's what convolution sampling does. So I'm hoping good things, because again, normally convolution sampling gets quite close. And then in terms of the algorithmic plugins, so again, you have algorithmic plugins. It's an algorithm based off the hardware, okay? We've got the Pulsar Mu. So they're the two main guys. Before I start, I'm just going to say very quickly, I was asked to do the IK Multimedia Dynamu. I'm just going to tell you right now, I didn't do it because it was just a waste of time. It doesn't sound anything like the rest of them. It sounds quite weak, and by weak I think it lacks depth, a lot of depth. I don't know if it's got harmonics in it. It doesn't sound like it's got a lot of harmonics in it. It just doesn't sound very good. In comparison to like the hardware and the two plugins, I just really didn't like it, and I was just kind of wasting my time. In terms of a Manley VARI-MU, it sounds absolutely nothing like it. Nothing like it. And it's not up to the standards of the Pulsar Mu either. I just didn't like it, okay? So that's just my viewpoint. So let's get straight into it, okay? Let's go straight into the first shootout, which is going to be in bass. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play it from start to finish. I've got the Manley VARI-MU. Remember, that's coming from Access Analog, those great guys from Access Analog, okay? Access Analog have some great hardware available. And again, I'm streaming at 48K lossless as well, and I'm pretty sure somebody was asking me about Access Analog, and I'm pretty sure it's Prism converters that they use as well. So it's pretty good converters, and again, it's 48K lossless as well, okay? It's as much as my broadband could take. Okay, so let's get into the bass, and I'll play it all the way out. So I'll have Manley in the middle, and then I'll have the plugins either side, and I'll just kind of go in and out, in and out, in and out. And in terms of the settings, I've set the bass quite slowish, okay? Because I want to kind of show the compressors working in different ways. So this one's set a little bit slower. It's compressing about 3 to 5 dB. And yeah, let's just see how we get on. Okay. Right, okay, so what I take from that, and again, remember, this is my subjective personal opinion because I'm always in the comments. They probably feel like I'm defending myself. Just remember, my opinions are my opinions, right? My opinion does not define these plugins, okay? So, for me, right off the bat, the Magenta is unbelievably close. Like, I was able, the pre is the most important thing, right? If you're using Acustica plugins and you're using the standalone compressor, just remember you have to use the pre, okay? And I'll go on, at the end of the video, I'll show you actually in Plugin Doctor what the Pulsar Mu and the Acoustic Audio Magenta are doing, okay? So just remember the pre is very, very important. That's giving you your non-linearities of the actual frequency response and also your harmonics as well, okay? So the pre is massive, and I had to really, what you find is that if you dial in the pre just right, bang, mwah. I remember I was dialing in, it was like, that's it, that is the sound of that hardware. I think the bass, the kind of dip, what you kind of find with the hardware is the hardware dips. It's got a little bit of a roll off, it's a little bit darker, but the bass response, oh my god, every analog gear I hear, it's just got this really great, a lot of people say feel, you could feel the low end, it's great low end. I think, genuinely, I think the acoustic audio is that close, genuinely that close. I don't, like, you would not hear that. I just don't think you would hear the difference in a mix, not in my opinion. It's so close. And then the Pulsar Mu, okay? The Pulsar Mu is a completely different kettle of fish, right? Low end wise, it's got more low end and it's got more highs. It's not got the roll off, and again, I tried to actually take the highs down by compressing. I was completely compressing the highs, and still it's got this high end. So it doesn't actually sound anything like the hardware. Actually, many would probably argue that it actually sounds better because the low end's bigger and the high end's bigger. It doesn't sound like a Manley VARI-MU, okay? It just doesn't. It doesn't. The Magenta sounds like the Manley VARI-MU. The Pulsar doesn't, and it's doing its own thing. And I'll show you why exactly. You're going to find a pattern in the next two shootouts, okay? And you're going to find out exactly why the Pulsar does not sound like the real deal, okay? And it has its own vibe, okay? So, bass, take from that as you will. In my opinion, the Magenta, I'm saying 95. I'm going to go 95%, right? I'd maybe say 98%, but I'll go 95 and be conservative. I'd say it's as close to the real deal as you're going to get, okay? So, let's move on to vocals, okay? Because, again, VARI-MU compressors are very popular on vocals, and I know the VARI-MU has been quite popular on, sorry, another itchy head. It's very, very popular on vocals. So, we're going to have a kind of fast-ish attack and kind of a mid-release on this one, okay? And again, I'll show you the settings up here as well. So again, you can see what I've got the preset like, because again, you might find the pre slightly different. And again, what you'll always find with the hardware is that kind of input is normally between, say, like halfway, maybe like just under like 3/4 or whatever. You normally find that's kind of the sweet spot in the hardware. So I've kind of emulated that in the Pulsar as well. So, vocals, let's see how we come on.
There is a man in my dream, knocking on my head, and I've given all I have to be given. There is a man in my dream, knocking on my head, and I've given all I have to be given. There is a man in my dream, knocking on my head, and I've given all I have to be given. There is a man in my dream, knocking on my head, and I've given all I have to be given. There is a man in my dream, knocking on my head, and I've given all I have to be given. There is a man in my dream, knocking on my head, and I've given all I have to be given. There is a man in my dream, knocking on my head, and I've given all I have to be given. Who are these figurines that rest upon my pillow, flying in the night, doing nothing right? What does all this mean? If I wake them, will they follow? Never will I know where they go. Do they go? No, I never knew why. We were only passing ships.
Right, again, let's just cut the crap, right? It sounds so close, man. The Acustica is so close. See that pre? Again, it takes a lot of dialing in, and what you're finding is that see the schmod, I'm pretty sure the schmod's your look ahead, right? Is that I've always got, and you'll notice that the look ahead in the Pulsar as well, I forgot to mention that in the bass, that to get the Pulsar to kind of do its kind of thing, because again it does sound, it's closer than the bass, but you can still hear the differences, okay? Is that look ahead. The look ahead's very important to get it to sound more like the analog, and I kind of have that kind of more, I'm going to stop saying 3D, because again I got lynched for saying 3D.
You cannot have 3D in mono.
You know what I mean, so I'm going to say depth, okay? I'm going to say depth for the 3D police, right? So depth, I feel that to get that depth, that's what the look ahead is for, because I'm pretty sure the look ahead is kind of, I'm pretty sure it changes the attack, and it's kind of fixing more on like the transients and stuff, so the transients coming out a little bit more. So what I don't like about the vocals, right, in terms tonally, I think the Pulsar gets a little bit closer, but even the it's a little bit harsh to me. It's those highs. Again, I'm trying to tame those highs, and you just can't. It's close-ish, but I just feel it sounds a little bit less tamed. The Manley VARI-MU, right, sounds a lot smoother. And you'll find what analog is. Analog normally has a roll-off. It's darker. That's why a lot of people say analog gear is warmer. And the VARI-MU does have a little bit of a high-end roll-off, okay, where, again, I'll go into, at the end of the video, right, I'll show you in Plug-in Doctor why the Pulsar sounds so bright. So those differences, would you say it's a £4,000 difference? Would you say that whatever difference you pick out in the hardware versus the Magenta, would you genuinely say that's worth £4,000? Is that a £4,000 difference? Is that difference going to change your mix, that vocal? Is it going to make that vocal £4,000 better? I don't think so. I think the bass was closer. I'd say maybe 90 and 95% on the vocals. Maybe I could have got it even closer. I probably could have got it closer. It's pretty close. In a blind test, it would be hard. And side by side, it's very close. So close. Pulsar Mu, again, is kind of doing its own thing, but I don't like it. On the bass, I was like, I quite like it, but I don't know. I think it's a little bit harsh. Just a little bit more harsh, okay? So that's my opinion on that. Again, right? Down below, let me know what you think. Answers on a postcard, okay? So, last one, drums, because you're all moaning that I'm not doing it in the context of a mix. Now, remember, the reason I don't do anything in the context of a mix is because you've got to be fair. So remember, certain mixes, the way I mix, okay, I use a lot of Acustica audio, will be tailored, right? So I mix a certain way, and Acustica audio suits that. So that's unfair on, say, the Pulsar, because Acustica audio would most likely sound better in a mix that I do. It's a variable. I mean, as soon as you give somebody a variable, as soon as they have a certain preference or a certain opinion on a certain product, you give them a variable, they're going to cling on to that variable, and it's going to be, you could have mixed, if you mixed that differently, it would have sounded better. If you did this differently, if you did that differently, and as soon as you give somebody variables, they just cling on to it, okay? So let's do it fair. So, last one, drums, okay? So, well, let's do it on a drum kit, right? Because I know quite a few people like to use VARI-MUs on drum kits. So, last one, drums. Let's see how we get on in drums. And is the Magenta, again, going to sound almost identical in my opinion? Okay, remember my opinion, subjective. So is it going to be as close to the hardware? And what is the Pulsar Mu going to sound like this time? Right, okay, right. So this time, right, because I knew that the Pulsar was going to sound different, right? So what I did was I actually didn't tame the highs this time because I wanted you to hear those highs. Now again, to hear those, like, it's a little bit kind of what people class as digital highs because it's lacking that roll off, okay? And again, it's very, very bright. The Pulsar's very, very bright if you're not clamping down, because a lot of people won't do it. A lot of people will just kind of leave it as is and not compress those highs. So to me, again, the Magenta is practically there. It's like, I'd probably say 95% there. It sounds almost identical. Again, it's riding it's getting the preset right. And again, getting your look ahead. If you get your look ahead, your pre, and also the high pass filter, that's very, very important as well. Normally I found if I had the high pass filter set to about 90 hertz, get your look ahead set right. It was normally in kind of nearly maxing out your look ahead, your schmod. And getting your preset just right, you can almost get it to just nearly bang on what the hardware is. Again, I don't think it's a £4,000 difference. Whatever you can hear, I don't think it's a £4,000 difference. Again, it's just opinion, right? It's preference. This is what I'm trying to do all these shootouts about, is to kind of take apart the analog versus digital debate and go, well, is the difference worth the money? I don't think it is here. I think the drums, I managed to get the snare, the highs especially, I managed to kind of nail it. The kick, it took a bit of time with the kick. The kick's nearly there. It's not 100%, but it's never going to be 100%. Again, it depends on the unit that was sampled, and a lot of people say, again, it depends on what kind of converters, and again, the conversion coming through the broadband, again, like streaming it online. I think it's actually a little bit too bright in the Pulsar. You've got to watch out for that. Again, the low end, you can get, in my opinion, you can get kind of better low end. It does stand out a little bit more. So Again, it doesn't sound like the hardware, but I'm going to show you why, okay? And the reason I've done it at the end is because I wanted you guys to hear, genuinely in my opinion, how utterly close the Acustica Magenta is to the hardware, okay? So in Plugin Doctor, right, as you can see with the Acustica Magenta, it's very kind of non-linear, okay, in its response, okay? And it's not completely drastic, quite non-linear, but it's not kind of going too daft, okay? And then in terms of the harmonics, it's very, very, very clean. Acustica always do very, 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 very clean harmonics, which is something that I quite like. So you've kind of got this non-linear kind of frequency curve that, again, that does adapt kind of the more you crank it, and you kind of find when you kind of go more over halfway, it starts to like change even more, okay? And then we've got the Pulsar Mu, okay? Now, I think what you can see is that the Pulsar Mu is never going to sound like a Manley VARI-MU because its linear frequency response is it's pretty crazy. The reason the lows sound so big is because it's got a massive smiley curve, right? It generally does. It's got this huge bass boost and it just gets bigger. And again, you can notice that like when you crank the input down, it goes down. But as you can see, when to get it to work the way I wanted it to work in terms of like the hardware, you have to have the input pretty cranked. When you have the input pretty cranked, you kind of notice that this bass just kind of comes out of nowhere, which kind of means that you're kind of dipping all those mids, and then the kind of harder you crank it, poof, you've got this big like this high boost that comes out of nowhere and gets steeper and steeper and steeper. That's why your highs kind of sound so bright, and the harmonics are just now. Just remember there are oversampling options in the Pulsar Mu, and the reason that I've kind of set it up here is to show you the difference in the harmonics and the reasons why you should be using the oversampling. Because the harmonics, there's a lot of aliasing. If you don't use the ×8, I'd probably just say use max the oversampling, then the aliasing is kind of removed quite a lot. You still have aliasing though, even oversampling at its max, you're still seeing a bit of aliasing, and it has a lot of intermodulation distortion, which is going to cause mud. So to me, in the bass and again parts of the drums, there was kind of bits of mud that I can hear. It sounded a little bit unpleasant to me, and that's the intermodulation distortion. There shouldn't be as much intermodulation distortion in there. Again, intermodulation distortion can be quite nasty, and you can, again, there's hardly, I don't think there is any, I don't think there's any intermodulation distortion, or if there is, there's like, it's so small in the Magenta. So I don't know what they modeled. But the reason why it sounds so different is that, and I'm just going to kind of say that it's something that I don't like. I kind of find it a little bit disingenuous, okay? I'd much rather that Pulsar came out with just its own compressor, right? People might say, but Paul, I've not called it the VARI-MU. But if you look at its case and you look at its buttons and the way that it's set up, we all know it's emulating a Manley VARI-MU. It is. So people buy it, and somebody made a very, very good comment, because that Waves video, I've taken a lot of good comments from that. Somebody mentioned that, Paul, you've got to remember that a lot of plugin manufacturers get away with a lot because 90%, even maybe 95, 98% of the people that buy the plugins have never ever used the hardware. So we don't have a clue if it's close or if it's not. And a lot of people buy it because it's a Manley VARI-MU and such used it. You don't know what it sounds like, so you're going to perceive that it's going to sound amazing, which is why I like to do these tests. Because to me, Pulsar's been very disingenuous because it doesn't sound nothing like it. It's a smiley. Everybody knows that if you're doing a smiley curve, things sound better. So to me, I get a little bit worried when manufacturers do stuff like that, because I'm like, I kind of feel like it's overcompensating. It's kind of like it's wanting you to focus on the highs and focus on the lows, maybe because the compression isn't as maybe as good. The compression is still good. The look ahead's really, really good in it, and the bass sounds good, the high sounds good, but it sounds nothing like a Manley VARI-MU. I'm just going to say that now. It sounds nothing like it. The Acoustic Audio Magenta, to me, is the closest thing you're going to get to the hardware. The closest thing. It's 95% there. You would not tell a difference in a mix, in my opinion. Stick that in a mix, you're not hearing the difference. Is the Pulsar Mu a bad plugin? Again, there is no such thing as a bad plugin. It's just not a Manley VARI-MU. It's its own thing. I'm not a big fan of that big bass boost. That's overcompensation. I like to know that if I'm using compression, then I'm expecting just like little humps, right? Not like big massive scoops and big massive high end, because it's almost like using a Pultec. But the thing is with me, if I want to use like a Pultec to get like a smiley curve, then I use a Pultec because I already use a Pultec. So and again, there's a lot of intermodulation, distortion. Again, you've got to use oversampling, which does take a bit of CPU, to be fair. But there still is aliasing, and you know what I mean. It's just, it does its own thing. I think a lot of you guys might actually prefer the Pulsar Mu because again, the roll off and the darkness of the Manley VARI-MU unit. I think you might, and I think that's why plug-in manufacturers do that. If they kind of go, I can't get this to sound like the hardware, and I can't get it to sound like better than the hardware. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to go, know what? There's your lows, poof, and there's your highs. And then what you do is you listen to the two side by side and go, that sounds better because I've got more high end. That sounds darker, which then makes you think that this sounds better. There's loads and loads and loads of subjectiveness going on in here. So it's quite a hard test, but yeah, Acustica Magenta, Manley VARI-MU, sell it, man. I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say it, right? I'm going to stop being conservative, right? Sell it. Sell your Manley VARI-MU and buy someone else, right? It's so utterly close, right? I don't think you're going to get anything else, right? And it's like, I'm not a bad person for like telling you to sell your Manley VARI-MU. It's £4,000, £3.5 grand. You could probably sell it like for £3 grand, right? £3,000. Think about the money. Think about what you could do with that. I'd like to have £3,000. So look, it's up to yourself, guys. Again, comments down below. Again, always let me know what you think, please. No arguments. Everything's subjective. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. And yeah, let's just kind of get more into this debate. And again, let's speak more about digital plugins, convolution sampling, and the differences of what each have to offer. Right, that's what I'm interested in. Okay, so next week it is going to be the Neve 33609 because that came second in the poll. So it's definitely going to be that. So I don't know if there's any other. Let me know if there's any other 33609s. I'm not doing the Lindell because it confuses stuff. The Lindell is a 2245E or whatever it is. It's a different Neve compressor. So again, I know the Navy definitely does it. I don't have UA. And the last thing is, guys, if you want me to include universal audio, somebody's actually got a satellite, but it's Thunderbolt. And they're like, Paul, I'll send it to you so you can use universal audio. But I have like a Lenovo laptop and it's like, I don't have Thunderbolt. Do you guys know if there's any adapters that I can buy so I can utilise that? Because it would be great if I did have UAD, because UAD just released the 33609. And imagine that, right? That would do really, really well, right? 33609, right, from Access Analog, Acustica Navy, and UAD, Acustica versus UAD. I'm trying to get there, okay? So again, let me know down below as well. So thank you very much, guys. Like and subscribe if you like what you're seeing. There's a whole Mix on Wednesday playlist, and there's also a Patreon, okay? So if you want to go down below, there'll be a link, and you can subscribe to my Patreon and help me out so I'm able to jack in my job, do this full time, and focus solely on this whole analog plug-in digital kind of debate and delving further and just spend more time on YouTube with you guys. Okay, so don't be shy. Comments down below. I've been Paul Thorpe, and I'll see you again next Wednesday on Mix 'em Wednesdays.